Hello everyone. So today we're going to cover um, dynamic range and exposure and ISO and how that affects your images, and exposing to the right. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. So let me flip over to some images I took earlier today and explain what's going on. So here we're taking a picture of our sofa out in the backyard. This image was overexposed. This was taken at like ISO 1600. And we'll take a look at the levels here. And you'll see we are highly exposed to the right. There's significant clipping here. That also means there's significant data loss. So there's not a whole lot we can do to fix this image. Now, for reference, this image was taken on the Lumix S1R Mark II with the 85 millimeter f1.4 Sigma. And, trying to expose to the right, we have data loss, we have clipping, and there's no way of getting that back. So, a couple of things on modern cameras made within the last couple of years is the dynamic range has gotten significantly better with these cameras. When you're talking a camera that's got 14 stops of dynamic range, how you handle your histograms is probably going to change a little bit. And I'll show you why here in a minute. Now, this one, better exposure. Let's take a look at its histogram here. Image adjustments, levels. So again, we are exposed to the right. And there is definitely some data loss here, but it's not as bad. We have more data. The histogram spans almost the entirety here, which is good. That means that the dynamic range of the camera is useful. We have a lot of data here, even though we've got some data loss because the image is overexposed and overexposed to the right. That's what happened. This was taken at ISO 400. This image, which is properly exposed, not necessarily exposed to the right. Let's look at its histogram. Almost. Okay. So this is slightly exposed to the right, but we have virtually no data loss here. Our blacks came in almost perfectly. There's tiny amount of clipping on the high end, but it's not going to be that noticeable. And our histogram is full range. So that means our dynamic range is getting used the most. There's nothing exposure-wise that we need to do for this image. So when you hear somebody talk about exposing to the right, you want to be careful. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And the reason people talk about exposing to the right is if you're shooting with a camera that only has, 8 to even 12 levels of dynamic range, then yeah, you want to expose to the right to a certain extent to make sure that you get all the data from your camera that your camera is capable of capturing. On the other hand, if you're shooting a camera that's got 14 or more steps of dynamic range, you generally don't need to shoot to the right. You know, if you just properly expose your image, you really don't need to do anything. And, this is a properly exposed image. This is an ISO 64. There's no noise in the blacks in this image. And granted, ISO 64, I would expect that. Now let's go back to one of our other images here. Heavily exposed. There's a tiny bit of noise in this. Unfortunately, this image is overexposed. There is data loss. In addition to that, the camera focused, unfortunately, too close. So, it's basically out of focus as well. But there's huge amount of clipping on the right. So, I can bring this down. Let's see. Let's bring our whites down a bit here. So, oops. Yeah, we have big data loss here, and I'm moving that the wrong direction. So let's try that. Yeah, so now my blacks are deeper, but I'm still overexposed. And, even though I brought my blacks up, there's no detail. The detail's all vanishing. So, yeah, you really want to properly expose your image. Now if you have an older camera, and I'll put it to you like this: when I was shooting on my Fuji X-H1, its proper exposure was to the right, but it did not fill the histogram. This new Lumix camera fills the histogram, as does the Hasselblad. The Hasselblad, when properly exposed, the histogram looks flat. The amount of data across the entire dynamic range of the camera, it's collecting tons more data. So anyway, I hope this lesson was informative. And I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next lesson. So, thank you, and bye.